A watershed moment is beginning in Europe. What politicians a year ago were afraid to say aloud is now becoming almost a reality. Germany is indeed preparing to send its troops to Ukraine. Everything indicates that this step is no longer merely discussed behind closed doors, but is being planned at the general staff level and approved within a close circle of NATO allies. After dozens of Russian drones entered the airspace of Poland and Romania in recent weeks, and some even crossed into Slovakia, Berlin realized that neutrality is no longer possible. Germany, the largest economy in Europe, can no longer remain an observer. Chancellor Friedrich Merz, who came to power promising to restore Germany's strength and authority, increasingly repeats that Russia is an existential threat to Europe. According to several sources, these words are not mere rhetoric. In recent months, the German Ministry of Defense has held a series of close consultations with militaries from the United States, France, and the United Kingdom. This is not about a formal NATO entry into war, but about a regional stabilization mission under which Germany would allegedly send a limited Bundeswehr contingent into western Ukraine, to Lviv, Volhynia, and Ternopil regions, formally for rear area protection, logistics, and safeguarding humanitarian corridors. In reality, this would be the first time since 1945 that German troops would be on East European soil in an active conflict zone. Germany justifies the step as necessary to share the burden with the Ukrainian army and allow the armed forces of Ukraine to concentrate their main forces in the east and south. However, sources in the intelligence community say the mission will have a dual purpose, both defensive and intelligence gathering. For weeks, German reconnaissance drones Luna NG and Eurodrone have been circling over Poland and Romania, collecting data on Russian movements in Bryansk, Kursk, and Belgorod regions. Official announcements have not been made, but satellite images published by the GeoIntel Europe Analysis Center confirm German drone activity near Ukraine's borders. Public opinion in Germany is slowly but steadily shifting toward approval of direct participation in the war. 2 years ago, most citizens categorically rejected sending soldiers. But now, against the backdrop of Russian attacks on Ukraine's energy infrastructure and the threat that Poland could be next, more Germans support decisive measures. German media are cautiously preparing the audience. Major broadcasters ZDF and ARD have recently aired a series of reports on Ukrainian resilience and on the idea that Germany cannot stand aside while freedom on the continent is at risk. Meanwhile, closed hearings are underway in the Bundestag on creating a special security coalition with Poland, the Czech Republic, and the Baltic states. On paper, this appears as an agreement on mutual defense and humanitarian support. But in essence, it is a European alternative to NATO, a structure able to act faster than the alliance and without the need for unanimous approval of all members. The fact that such a structure would be led by Germany speaks for itself. Friedrich Merz wants to show that the new Germany is not a bureaucratic machine, but an active military player ready to defend Europe. Preparations for the mission have been underway for months. Bundeswehr bases in Ulm, Bavaria, and Lower Saxony have been turned into mobilization centers and training grounds for new rapid response battalions. The German press calls this the European Shield. Leaks indicate the contingent will number about 8,000 personnel and include Leopard 2 A8 main battle tanks, Iris-T air defense systems, and Patriot missile defense batteries, as well as mobile signals intelligence stations. Formally billed as preparation for a possible NATO mission if the situation worsens, in practice these forces will be ready for deployment this spring. Closed sources say a two-stage scenario is being discussed. In the first stage, German troops will take up defensive positions in western Ukraine, primarily along highways and railway junctions through which the flow of Western equipment and ammunition passes. The second stage involves creating a security zone within a radius of 150 kilometers from the Polish border. This will ease the burden on the Ukrainian army and create the illusion of defense depth in the event of a large-scale Russian offensive. And although Germany officially states that it does not intend to engage in direct confrontation with Russia, the Kremlin sees it differently. In his recent speeches, Putin increasingly uses the rhetoric of a new Reich and says that Europe is once again preparing to march east. In response to rumors of German involvement, Russia has already strengthened its military presence in the Kaliningrad region and deployed additional Iskander-M missile systems there. In addition, this week Putin announced that Russia had completed the development of new tactical nuclear weapons with unique characteristics, adding that they will be used if the threat to sovereignty becomes real. In effect, it was a direct threat to Berlin, veiled as a warning. Behind closed doors at NATO, Putin's speech was seen as a signal that Moscow is ready to resort to nuclear blackmail against Europe if Germany sends troops. American analysts from RAND Corporation and CSIS have already called the situation the most dangerous point since the Cuban Missile Crisis. Particularly alarming is the fact that Germany is effectively becoming the new military axis of Europe, pushing France and Italy towards similar steps. According to insiders in Brussels, there are already discussions about creating a European corps that would unite the forces of Germany, Poland, and the Baltic states under a single command. Poland fully supports the initiative, believing that Germany should take responsibility for the security of the continent. Warsaw is ready to provide logistics, airfields, and transport corridors for German units. Moreover, Polish media report that infrastructure in border areas is already being upgraded to receive Bundeswehr heavy equipment. But the main question remains, how Moscow will react. For now, the Kremlin is relying on intimidation, constant statements about red lines, demonstrative launches of ballistic missiles, and the deployment of nuclear warheads to Belarus are creating an atmosphere of fear and uncertainty. Inside Russia, however, the situation is becoming increasingly unstable. Economic sanctions, equipment shortages, growing discontent among the military, and rumors of a hidden mobilization are eroding the internal foundation of the regime. This is why many experts believe Putin may choose to sharply raise the stakes to distract the population from domestic problems. While Europe prepares, Moscow is not standing still. The Russian army is increasing its presence on the Western Front. According to intelligence reports, around 30,000 additional troops have been deployed to the Ukrainian border, including units of the 1st Guards Tank Army. Military exercises have intensified in Belarus, where scenarios to repel a NATO invasion are being practiced. Lukashenko has stated that the Belarusian army is ready for any scenario and will not allow Western forces to approach Minsk. Western analysts note that Belarus is effectively becoming a platform for the deployment of Russian nuclear weapons. Satellite imagery shows the construction of new hangars and enhanced security at several military sites near Baranovichi and Osipovichi. All of this is heightening NATO's concerns. Daily meetings are being held at the alliance's headquarters in Brussels to model various scenarios, ranging from localized provocations to a large-scale war across the entire eastern flank. The moment when Europe will no longer be a mere observer is approaching. Germany, long a symbol of pacifism, is now preparing to become the center of a new military bloc, and if its troops actually cross the Ukrainian border, history will enter a new era. An era in which decisions are no longer made in Washington, but in Berlin, where every movement of tanks and aircraft will echo across the entire continent. And no one will be able to say where assistance ends and war begins.